Well, I've put the new alternator in, so I'm going to give it a whirl. We'll see what happens here. I haven't fired this up in a week. I switched to my other display, so I've got notice I've got a real-time clock now. It tells me what the time is, and I've got an odometer, and I've got acceleration data, but I've also got another device here. I have my GTEC RR monitor for performance, measuring power and cornering and braking and everything. Anyway, I'm just gonna, on this display here, go to the other display, and we're gonna see if my alternator works. I'm gonna fire this up and see if I actually get voltage. Now, this would be a world's first for the new alternator. Here we go. Oh, not seeing any charging currents at all. That's not good. Okay, I'm going to have to check under the hood and see what's going on. I may have to adjust the dial, the voltage dial. I may have it set wrong. Well, it turns out that this alternator, yeah, I can turn the voltage up, and that does help. I'll show you what's happening here. I'll start it up again. So it's charging fine. There's 15 amps, 10 amps, and then as we get down to about 1300 RPM, which is where I've set the idle right now, it stops charging. So I'm gonna have to go back to a different pulley if I want to run this thing. If I wanted to charge down at 1000 RPM, I'm gonna need to run a different pulley. It doesn't produce current down below. And I've got an underdrive. I have a 2.5-to-1 ratio pulley on there right now, and I also have a 3-to-1 ratio pulley that I can try, and that'll probably make all the difference in the world. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm just fiddling around with technology. I'm going for my first hill climb today to try to really break the engine in. So I'm going to go up a local mountain, do several thousand feet of vertical, and see if I can get the rings to seat in a little bit. Maybe do some performance testing too. Okay. So I'm driving up a local mountain called Cypress, and it's 3,000 some odd feet of elevation climb. So I'm able to, this is my second time going up actually, and I'm able to stretch my legs on this thing and trying to shift here and drive with the same hand. So basically, yeah, I can just put my foot on it, and I can also put my foot on the brake and hold it down. And so I'm like full throttle, and take my foot off the brake, build some RPM. I'm in 4th gear right now, right? And just let this thing go. Opportunity to let this thing build its cylinder pressures. And just let the engine cool down a little bit. Give it a bit of a break, and so on. So this is what I'm doing all the way up the mountain, and you know, not revving the piss out of it, but keeping it sort of below 6,000 for the most part, but full throttle a lot of the time. And this is ideal for breaking it in. About an 8% grade, 7-8% grade. there's a switch back here, and then there's a total of 4 segments. What I do like is that after all of my hill climbing today, my exhaust is smelling a lot less oily. So I think the break-in was good. And I have some ideas around taming my alternator that I'm going to get to as well this weekend. Well, a couple of things. First of all, I can't use my GTI right now because it's too cloudy and rainy, and it can't get a fix on the satellites for its fantabulous 50 Hertz GPS engine, so can't do any accurate measurements until we get some clear weather. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, so everything is pissing rain and all that. Anyway, engine's working well. I've been through a couple of alternators. The one that I'm using right now is, there's 2 different versions of the PowerMaster XS Volt, these mini Denzos. And one of them, the racing version, just produces too few amps at idle. And I have like minus 10 amps of you know, like current draw to the battery and idle, so with none of the accessories on. So I swapped it for a different model number, 8168, and it produces like over 30 amps at idle. So I also changed back to a smaller pulley. So I have a 2.5 to 1 pulley ratio right now. So I'm getting almost 40 amps worth of charging current when the engine's at 1100 RPM. And I idle at 1050, so yeah. Chasing down some oil leaks. Maybe I'm going to have to change that oil pan seal. A little bit of oil coming around the edges of it. And for whatever reason I get a tiny amount of oil in the rear stud of the cylinder number 4 exhaust manifold. I was getting some blow-by. I've tightened things up. Maybe not, but I've got some of this... I'll show you this new fandangled gasket sealer. So the Permatex Ultra Copper, so for exhaust systems. So I may pull the exhaust header back. See, this is an example of a super small pulley that I decided not to use as well. So I may end up pulling the exhaust system off, putting a little bit of sealant on it, and then popping it back on to make sure I get no blow-by. But anyway, just chasing down a few minor things like that. I also, you know, the engine settles after a little while, and so I've readjusted the front rear motor mount so that there's it doesn't have as much pressure on those 2 mounts, because the center main mounts that suspend the engine, you know, as they settle, it'll put more pressure on those front and rear mounts, and then it gets noisy. So car's nice and quiet and smooth feeling right now. One thing I've noticed, and it may be because of the way I use the braking system on the jack stands to brake in the engine before I could drive it, I've got, see this little play here? It's like 3/8 of an inch of rotational play measured at the edge of the wheel. And that's actually coming from the outer CV joint. So when you go on-off throttle, you get this clunk as you pull, you know, the differential in the transmission, and I've got a Quaife limited slip, and it's a gear-driven system. It's a really high-end, nice system, but basically you get a little bit of this slap clunking going on and off throttle. So Josh got me these really nice axles with CVs, and I may have damaged them by, you know, having the CV joint at a harsh angle when I was applying the brakes when the thing was on the engine stands, and I had propped up the spindles a bit, but not enough maybe. So I'm going to experiment with some what they call racing axles, so with custom CV joints that are supposed to have 0 play in them. And that should make things a little tighter, so you don't on-off throttle. I'm not getting that clunk, 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 little clunk sound, which I don't like. So got the charging system all working beautifully. The nice thing is I can switch with the computer the voltage, charge voltage from the alternator from 14.9 or 15 volts, or where I've got it set at 15.1 right now. And then when I click on the control to the alternator, I can drop that down and keep the total charge voltage at 13.8. So that whole system is working well now. I'm just doing locks. The Crazy Quiff guys in the UK did my relocking service for me, and I'm in the process of putting all new cylinders in everywhere, and then I can put the doors back together and all the rest of it. And so I have one key code for everything now, which is awesome because I didn't have everything matching, and I was trying to do it myself, and eventually realized that I couldn't do it. So I gave up and got the guys in the UK to do it all for me, and thank you very much, Crazy Quiffs. We're the Mark 1 experts in the UK, and get that all going. So, and then I'm just running through like a laundry list of little things. I'm not going to get much driving, and the problem is I take the car out right now, and I'm in the West Coast. It's pouring rain most of the time, and it's like all the leaves are off the trees, and it's mucky and dirty, and the car just gets absolutely filthy all over, and I can't really stand on the throttle. This car's got a lot of power to weight ratio is very high, so it wants to just slide all over the place, and it's kind of dangerous. So I'm going to probably not get any performance testing validation done until better weather comes in the springtime. I'll probably get some good winter days that are clear and there's no salt on the road, that kind of thing, and I can take it out and enjoy the car. But I certainly am not going to drive the car very much between now and probably March, April, unfortunately. It's licensed, but and I'll take it out for the occasional spin, and we'll see. So I'm just working gremlins and bugs out, trying to get everything perfected. And one example is I glued these upper door seals in today, and what I did is I cut off part of the, sorry, get focus on me, cut off part of the rubber piece that wraps around the back, because it's just so hard to attach it. And then I used impact adhesive and glued it on all the way around, and now it's perfect everywhere on both sides. And another point about seals, so I replaced this seal because I had cut them slightly too short, and the trick I've got is to push them hard in one end and keep pushing them and make sure that they get jammed all the way to one end, and then when you get to the far end, cut them about 3/8 of an inch longer than you think, and then tuck that end in and then sort of push it all back in, and so you've got excess pressure. So as these things age and dry out a little bit, they will shrink slightly and you won't end up with a gap. So I got everything, all my window mechanisms and all of my surrounds and all that stuff are all good now. So, oh, and the mirrors, these things are, I've jammed a bunch of rubber in these seals here in the gap so that this is quite rigid, because otherwise the mirrors are moving around a little bit, driving me crazy. And then I've used the technique of constraining the cables with another piece of wire to just tighten up the slack in the cable so that these mirrors, these old mirrors that have got a bit of play in them, once again that play is removed. So anyway, there she goes. The car is, you know, getting the bugs worked out of it, and then we'll get some good weather and we'll get some good track time and get the slicks on this thing. And I now belong to a private race course, Vancouver Island Motorsport Circuit, and I will be racing this car on the circuit. So anybody who wants to see how this thing really performs against a brand new 911 GT3 or all the other hot cars on the track, I will certainly be able to put down some good numbers, and we'll get some stock late model Mark 7 GTIs and R's out there, and we'll test this car against all those guys as well and take it to the drag strip and fully test it out in the drag strip. So we're going to get the nitrous going on this thing eventually and have a ton of fun. Yeah, so I'm just doing some remediation here. My visors were all ratty and rusted, and so I got a fresh pair, and they're looking much nicer, but I still had to clean them. I use trichloroethylene, which is sometimes used as brake cleaning fluid, and sort of get all the wear and tear, dirt from physical handling of these things, get them cleaned up. I was not keen on using soap and water just because I think there's probably cardboard inside that might get damaged. So just cleaned them up that way, and then I used the Parasol Veribond to just update the edges where the faux leather was sewn around the edges. It's also the wrong color. It was a little bit too royal blue and not enough of the midnight blue that I use in my car, and a little bit more gray in it, I guess. So anyway, so that's done, and I'll be able to bolt those in. The got replacement screws coming. I'm pretty sure they're the same as the Vanagons and the VW Bugs, the what they call oval screws, the metric screws for there. Just a fresh set of screws as well, and be able to put them in. I was going to trim them for the electronic mirror, but I realized I can just pull them out slightly before I flip them down, and then they're good to go. So no complaints. So I'm going to get some custom racing axles so that this play, see that amount of play in the wheel? That's the outer CV joint that's a little bit loose. So custom set of racing axles that I call level 3. So they're supposed to have 0 play, which will keep me from having it on-off sort of clunking. I talked to the guys at Quaife in the UK, and they said no, it's nothing to do with the limited slip. The gear-driven limited slip isn't noisy. I did find a technical problem. That is that my master cylinder has a Mark III non-ABS master cylinder, 22.2mm piston, but I ended up using the 16-valve Scirocco Mark I master servo, and I think there's a bit of a mismatch because my pedal doesn't feel quite right. It's a bit spongy initially, and then it gets firm, and it makes heel and towing, not that I'm a good heel and tower, but it makes heel and towing coming into the corners hard to do, because the pedal wants to sort of move about 1.5 inches before it settles in, and then your foot's at a weird angle. So anyway, I'm got a Mark III ATE OEM master cylinder from a Mark III coming, and I should be able to literally just unbolt this whole assembly, the master cylinder assembly, without taking the lines off and having to re-bleed, and just pull it forward and then pull the master cylinder off and get the servo out, and then I'm going to have to cut and thread and machine the end to adapt to the Mark I system that custom system I already did. So that'll be coming in the next week.